All right, welcome in to the very first edition of Unleashed. I'm Eric Wynalda. I will be basically unleashed in the upcoming minutes here. This is going to be a show that I've been really looking forward to doing. The reason why is because there's so many topics and there's so many things to discuss in this country, especially just in the world of football. The world of football is so much bigger than just our little version of soccer in the United States. We're talking about Major League Soccer and or our U.S. national team. So this will be a show where I kind of select some topics. I'm going to expect some engagement. I want to see what you guys think. I want to see where your minds are. And some of this stuff, a lot of it, might even be a source of information as far as that explanation of why we do things the way we do things. In the United States, that is, because we do it very differently than everywhere else. So off we go. First topic that we'll discuss is, and it's a very new development, MLS rules. Now, not that kind of rules. I mean, I'm not suggesting that MLS rules anything, but they do have their fair share of rules. Anybody that's been paying attention to this league since its inception in 1996 would know that not only is the schedule different, starting in spring, ending in the fall, this playoff schedule, which has changed 18 times.
Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
18 times we've had a different version of a playoff, meaning at one point, this is how you got in. There was only 6 or 7 teams that had a chance, and then we narrowed it down pretty quickly, and we got to a semifinals, and we got to a final, and it was always a neutral site. We've had some miserable experiences there, Toronto being one of them, where I believe Colorado beat Dallas. 2 places where we probably could have played this game not in the snow, but we elected to play it anyway. Colorado won. Gary Smith, never forget it. But this is just a league that seemingly likes to change it up every year. If you're wondering why there are only a very few amount of people who are ever up for a GM job in Major League Soccer, it's because you got to know the rules. We've seen multiple people get hired and rehired. We call it the coaching carousel, or we say that this is just a recycled version of what we've done in the past, but at least they know the score. Guys like Chris Armas, guys like Robin Fraser, who get rehired somewhere else, it's because they know what they're getting into. And they also have a GM and or president and an ownership group who understands where you can spend money and where you can't. Now, let me give you a little bit of a history lesson here. The reason why Major League Soccer is the way it is, it's a single entity. What that means, for people that don't understand that, is that when a player signs a contract in Major League Soccer, they actually sign with the league. They don't sign with a team. They're allocated to a team. And this is why when we see a big name player coming in, sometimes other teams contribute financially to the receiving party, which is, let's say it's New York and it's Thierry Henry. All that money didn't come out of New York's pocket. When Beckham showed up, everybody was on board, including all of the sponsors who helped subsidize bringing a player of that stature into this country. It was first reported he had a $250 million contract, made 6.5 a year. So we get it. You know, some of these numbers and these ideas, they sound a little crazy, but it drives people nuts when we get into the rules. All right, so here we go. There's been a new development, which I actually applaud this. I think this is one of the best developments we've had in Major League Soccer since its inception. The NASL failed. They overspent, they couldn't afford their players, and that was the worry. That was the reason why Major League Soccer, from the start, became a single entity group. 10 teams, everybody's in on it, and if we fail, if one team fails, we all fail. So let's make sure that nobody fails. And that idea, right, parity, and it really comes from the NFL. A lot of guys that became original owners of Robert Kraft's, Lamar Hunt's, those folks, they understood the model of Major League Soccer needed to follow in the footsteps of the NFL. Now, the fact that the NFL still to this day controls Major League Soccer, that's a different story for a different day. But the rules that exist in Major League Soccer were always meant to protect the owners. What that means is that they weren't going to relive the past. They weren't going to have a New York Cosmos spending to get Pelé and Carlos Alberto and Giorgio Canaglia and overspending. Even though they were able to get the gate from the crowds, teams like Vancouver, Portland, Seattle, Tulsa Roughnecks, I mean, all of those teams were put in a position where they were expected to keep up with the Joneses, and they couldn't. And so there's a big reasoning behind, we don't want promotion and relegation if one team is going to just spend and the rest of us are just supposed to get our butts kicked. No parity there. The NFL guys didn't like it. So when they got involved with Major League Soccer, they rigged the rules to make sure that nobody ever was put in a spot where they were expected to spend a lot of money. That may have just changed. For the first time, it is possible for a Major League Soccer team to have an interest in a player in another team, and it's not a trade anymore. This is a straight out buy. The market is now officially open. It is a cash buy that if the owners are on board with that, there can be an exchange of money. Now, this is the beginning of a very scary moment for the Mark Abbotts and the Don Garbers of the world, the guys running this league in New York, because they've always been cautious about the realities of one owner spending more than another. This is going to get good, right? Now, a sense of normalcy in the real world would mean that a coach or a GM who wants to move a player or wants to buy a player, normally you can't do that in Major League Soccer. That's why they created Leagues Cup, because it's right in the middle and it actually gives a lot of people a window of opportunity because nobody talks about it. But in Major League Soccer, if you start the season, let's say in March, and you get into the transfer window, which exists to everybody else but us. Everybody else engages in this market in a different way, but Major League Soccer has put our players and our GMs and our coaches in a really weird spot. Just ask Atlanta, Giamakis and the players that left, Amada, leaving in May and June, but you're still expected to put a team on the field in July, and your team has just been decimated because a GM agreed to sell a player. The rest of the world doesn't operate like that. The summer months are off. If you want to sell a player, everybody knows when you sell them, when the market opens. And when that player and when that money is exchanged, let's say a player goes for $40 million. You don't have tomorrow to figure this out. You've got a month and a half to get on the phone to find a player that's going to replace. I mean, if we're talking about Atlanta, Pineda gets fired because he can't figure it out. 3 of his best players leave. He starts losing games and everybody's throwing their hands in the air saying, why are we losing? Aren't we supposed to be a better team? Why aren't we spending money? The budget's already been spent in Major League Soccer, and there's no way that you're going to be able to recover that fast. Coaches are tired of it. GMs are tired of it. They're starting to actually have a voice. And we've seen some of this stuff come out. Ernst Tanner in Philadelphia saying, basically, we're not going to do this Leagues Cup thing. A lot of guys don't want to do the Open Cup anymore because they're under pressure to actually win games, which is a good thing. But they've never had the ability to buy a player from another team within the league until now. Good history lesson on that would be Ruud Gullit. If you remember Ruud Gullit, famous Dutch player, comes to the United States and is the coach of the LA Galaxy. He studied the league for 3 to 4 months. He actually thought he had it. And he came into that meeting with Alexi Lalas prepared and he said, all right, I like the kid in Chicago. I like that kid over in Dallas. And let's see how much it's going to cost us to get the player up in Seattle. I'll leave the names out of it. Basically, they looked at him like he had 3 heads and they said, oh, we can't do that. And Ruud Gullit was left there saying, wait, how come this isn't like the rest of the world where I can just go buy the player and build my team? He said, no, this league operates under a bunch of rules and a bunch of categories. Is he an international? Is he a youth international? Is he a standard player? Is he going to be a reserve player? All of these categories have to be fulfilled, and it was just too damn confusing for Ruud Gullit. Obviously, he failed. The team failed, and Alexi Lalas was left to build the team, and all he was looking for was the next weird haircut. So he gets fired because he doesn't understand the rules. There's only 2 of these which you're allowed to do, but this is probably one of the biggest revelations that we've had in Major League Soccer, and in my opinion, it is a sign that Major League Soccer is actually growing up and it's getting better. This will actually put us in a spot where there is a sense of normalcy, where teams can actually help another. If it's about parity and there's a kumbaya approach to this, one GM can call another GM like this is some scene out of Moneyball and say, hey, let me help you out. I'll take him. I know you can't afford him right now. I'll take him. And how much? And I don't know if anybody has to buy the vending machines like they did in Moneyball, but those kind of deals are now going to happen. I, for the first time, actually want a GM job. Before, I didn't want to do that. I just thought, this is stupid. These rules are dumb. It hinders the players. It hinders the coaches. The GMs have a difficult time, and the owners have no idea where their money's going. They're going to be included in the conversation now. Anyway, that's it. Major League Soccer has changed its rules. Maybe this is the beginning of normalcy. Maybe this is the beginning of us joining the rest of the world and becoming a real soccer nation, doing the real business of football, not our version of it that complicates everything to such an extent. You have to be very specific hire. You have to know all the rules, and you're basically an accountant. That no longer exists. MLS is going to get better, and it's going to get much better because they've changed the rules. Congratulations. I know, I get it. Don Garber's looking for his parachute right now, and he's going to be out of the equation in a couple years. But for the time being, let's enjoy this. We know how much these teams have. All of that money was actually put out to the public. The fans can now chime in, and the pressure that they always were trying to avoid is now on. Who's going to be the best teams? Who's going to become the Manchester Uniteds and the Man Cities? Who's going to be the Brentfords and the Stokes? We're going to find out.